So the first thing is gun violence, national problem. Here in Hamilton, we've had 39 shootings so far this year, to the extent that the Tax Court of Canada, which is right downtown in Hamilton, is pulling out. They say they just don't want to be around here because there's so much violence. First of all, what do you think of the tax court's decision? Should they have done that? Should they be leaving?
I think it's a good decision for the tax court and for the federal accountability measures that are in place to kind of make that assessment. But what it does show is that there's some serious concerns about safety, and we need to make sure that people are safe. Ultimately, I believe that everyone has a right to be safe in their communities.
What do we do about it? Like, people are being shot now. What can we do now to resolve this problem?
So we have to do everything possible to address this. So whether it means speaking with experts around what would actually work to keep down violence. It's a complicated thing. I don't want to present like there's a simple solution to how we stop violence, but there are some things we know work. We need to tackle violence early, making sure there's early intervention to prevent young kids from getting into the violent lifestyle, getting recruited by gangs. So early intervention and supports for those young folks that get involved in this lifestyle. We need to make sure we're doing everything we can to stop guns from getting into our country, so better border protection to prevent guns from coming in. That's the biggest source of guns coming in. And under Liberals and Conservatives, there's been cuts to border security, cuts brought in by Harper that were maintained by the Liberals. They didn't really restore them to the levels they need to be at. So we need to have enough men and women serving on the border to be able to protect our border. So that's another area. And then we need to look at every other avenue to keep our communities safe.
Is there anything we can do right now to turn this around?
It's a tough question. It's one of those things where I want to make sure people are safe, but I don't want to give it the false hope that I have a magic bullet. I guess it's a bad pun, a magic solution that's going to solve it immediately. But we've got to take it seriously. Good resources in the community to make sure that we're keeping people safe. Prevention, different steps to provide prevention. These are the things that have been effective in the past. And then if there's any other advice from experts, we need to follow those advice, that advice, that guidance for what we can do to keep people safe now. Okay.
What do you think of the Liberal government's handling of this issue?
I think in general, gun control, the Liberals have been very symbolic as opposed to really concrete action. They've made some flashy announcements, but they haven't followed through in the most effective way. And I think that's been a fair critique of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals in general, but on this issue as well.
Okay. So another big issue that you're running into all the time is housing. I heard you on the CHML this morning. That was really interesting. Mm-hmm. How do you see the problem? Could you give us your analysis of what is actually going on?
Yeah. So with housing, this is something we've seen real clear evidence that shows what's going on and what we need to do differently. The rules that have been written that govern the housing market have been written by Liberals and Conservatives, the parties of Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre. And those rules have been written in such a way where if you were a rich investor or you were a rich developer, the housing market works fine. In fact, it works amazingly. You can make a massive return on your investment and make lots of money. Rich investors get richer, same with developers. But the housing market does not work for a young person or a senior wanting to retire or even a family that's trying to find a home that they can afford. And that is not by accident, that's by design. We have to change that fundamentally. So some of the things we're calling for, we need a housing market that works for people first, not for the profits of investors or developers. And that also means acknowledging that while we need private development, unequivocally, we need to make sure we're building more homes. We also need to know what type of homes we're building. I've spoken with lots of developers. They say, you know, I got to buy the land for the market price of the land, market price for the labor, market price for the goods. I'm going to build you a market home. The market cost for housing is out of reach for too many people. So if that's all we build, like Pierre Poilievre says, build more homes, build more condos that are out of reach for people, build more luxury homes. That's not going to work. We need to have real vision around building homes that people can actually afford. And that means having a wider variety. For sure, the private development, but also not-for-profit housing. We also need cooperative housing. That's been a really effective tool in the past, but there's just not enough of it for people to actually find an affordable home through cooperative housing or not-for-profit housing where a community group owns the building or runs the building. And the goal isn't to squeeze out as much profit, but the goal is to make sure people can afford to live there. And finally, and this I think is something we can do very immediately, there's a lot of buildings being bought by corporate landlords, big corporations that are buying up buildings and homes. They are often receiving federal help, whether it's in preferential tax treatment, whether it's in insurance that's backed by the government, or direct federal investments. They should not be receiving any federal help if they are gouging their tenants, ripping off with higher rent, or not keeping a safe and clean facility. That's something that we should be really clear. There's got to be strings attached to federal support. And so far what we're seeing is a lot of big corporate landlords are taking federal help and turning around and jacking up the rents for their tenants. That cannot be allowed. If we're giving federal help, there has to be a string attached that says, well, it's got to be affordable, it's got to be clean, it's got to be well maintained.
So one of the issues is everybody wants to get affordable housing built, but it has to be built by developers, and developers just aren't doing it because the profits aren't there. How do you get these developers to actually build this stuff?
There's got to be incentives, and that's what I've heard from the developers. Like, they're going to build on their own, left on the devices, are going to build market homes that are not affordable. To make it affordable, there has to be an incentive. So we provide incentives to build purpose-built rental that's affordable. We need an incentive. Again, that goes back to those things. We can provide preferential tax treatment. We can provide insurance backing for the loans. We can provide low-interest loans. But that has to be with a strong, guaranteed, strings attached approach where we need to guarantee that that's truly something that's within people's means to afford. We also know there's federal land. And there's lots of federal land in cities across this country. That federal land could be used to build homes that are affordable. But it can't be sold off to a developer with no strings attached. It has to be that we're going to use this federal land, so that frees up the cost of the land itself. And now we have to guarantee that what's built on that federal land is actually something that people can afford. And when I mean affordability, I'm talking about a percentage of your income that leaves you with enough money to pay the bills, to buy your groceries, and to have, save up for a rainy day or to take your family on a trip. So we're looking at some of the metrics are 30% of your income should go towards housing, leaving 70% for the rest of things you need. That's what we talk about when we're talking about affordability.
Okay. So what about direct government intervention in the housing market, such as what happened during the Second World War with the Wartime Housing Commission that's now the CMHC?
Oh, absolutely.
What would you think of that?
Oh, absolutely. We need to do that. There's no way we're going to have affordable homes unless there's direct government intervention. And this is where I differ very strongly with both Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre. Justin Trudeau doesn't really believe in taking that aggressive action. He's kind of tinkering with it, but he's not really taking that government approach to build homes that people can afford. And Pierre Poilievre is going the opposite direction, thinks that somehow government intervention is bad. Well, you're never going to have affordable homes unless the government actually invests to give people that support. The homes that a lot of the people after the World Wars bought were homes that were built with government support, and that's why they were affordable. Without that real investment, it's not going to be affordability, and that's something that's just wrong.
So you could see the wartime housing kind of thing where the government actually builds the houses and sells them to people.
Absolutely, and what we want to see is we need every approach. It's not just going to be one approach. We need to build homes that are affordable for students, because a lot of times students are competing with families to rent a home because there's nowhere else for them to go. So we need student housing that's affordable. We need not-for-profit housing. We need cooperative housing so people can, if they choose, they want to rent, but they want to be in a place where they're secure and safe, in a cooperative where they're never going to be kicked out and they're, in effect, a type of owner. And we also need homes that people can buy that are affordable. And one of the ways to achieve that is by building homes with direct government investment that are actually affordable.
Okay. I'll ask you about this. It's everybody's least favorite tax policy, the principal residence exemption. Would you do anything with that?
No. When it comes to principal residence, I believe that people should be able to feel secure in their own home, that that's not going to be impacted. But we do need to look at the fact that in a lot of cases, homes are being bought up by big corporations who are buying multiple apartment buildings, multiple single-family homes. Core Development 2 years ago announced, because the housing market is so lucrative, that they wanted to buy up $1 billion of single-family homes. So imagine you're a young person trying to buy your first home, and you're going up against a bidding war with Core Development that has $1 billion deep pockets. You're never going to be able to win that fight. That's something we've got to change. We can't have the housing market designed in such a way where it's only for rich developers to get rich, and that precludes everyday families and everyday young folks from buying their home. That's got to change.
How long would it take to turn this around?
It's not an easy thing, but it can turn around if we have the priority that it needs. I've met with ministers of housing from other countries like Germany, and I've seen the solutions that are out there. It can be done. It's not easy, but it's going to require a real clear focus on affordability. And it's not going to work with slogans or cheap gimmicks or not acknowledging the problem that the housing market as is never going to build homes that are affordable unless there's real strings attached, real incentives, or government intervention. That's the only way it's going to be affordable.
Okay. So another thing that I wanted to ask you about is the political aspect of it here. The conservative ad that came out yesterday, I guess it was, "Sell out Singh." What do you make of that?
Well, I'm not surprised that conservatives being dishonest with their ads. They know very well that we fought to use our power in Parliament to give people dental care. And I think they want to distract away from that because Pierre Poilievre said he wants to get rid of that. So seniors who've worked their whole life and are finally getting the dignity of being able to get their teeth looked after, he's saying to those seniors that you're not worth it. We're going to get rid of that program. And I think that's important for people to know. We fought to give people help. We used our power in this minority government the way New Democrats always do. If you look through the history of our country, anytime New Democrats have been in power, we've used our power to help out people. Tommy Douglas did it with universal health care. We're doing it with dental care. And what conservatives are trying to do with their power is what they always do, cut. They want to cut the dental care program, deny it to kids and seniors, even though that would be a massive improvement of their life and life-changing for so many people. That's what Pierre Poilievre is about, cutting the things that people need, and we're about investing in people.
Okay. Are you going to be around for the next election as party leader?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
How does the NDP position itself in this election coming up so that it's not just a third-party protest party, actually has some significance?
Well, this is a really important question. There's a big choice in front of people. They've seen Justin Trudeau and the Liberals for 9 years, and they've seen how they've been left behind. They've been ignored, and Justin Trudeau, frankly, has failed to address the problems of housing. Housing has gotten more expensive, not more affordable. It's gotten more expensive. And groceries. Under his leadership, it's gotten more and more expensive to buy groceries. Pierre Poilievre, the other choice, conservatives, they want to cut the things that people need. They want to cut the dental care. They want to cut pensions. They want to cut EI. They've been very open about cutting the things that people need. And they've also been very clear that they're on the side of big corporations. And New Democrats, they are the real choice. So for people who want change, it's about what change do they want. Our change is, let's have rules that protect people. Let's change the rules that have been written by Liberals and Conservatives, by Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre's party. Let's change those rules so they actually work for people. Let's stack the deck in favor of everyday families. And that means better protection for consumers, taking on corporate greed, stopping big corporate grocery stores from ripping off Canadians, which we know they do. Just recently, Loblaws was found guilty in a lawsuit or a settlement of $500 million because of their role in fixing the price of bread. $500 million, it's $500 million they were the settlement against them because they were involved in basically ripping off Canadians by jacking up the price of bread. We know corporations are going to continue to do that unless they're stopped with strong laws. We put one idea forward, and this gives you the difference between us and the other parties. We said, let's impose a price cap on food essentials if grocery stores don't lower their prices on their own. That's mandating and forcing them to drop prices. The Liberals and the Conservatives voted against it. So really the choice is out-of-touch Liberals, Conservatives who want to cut and gut the programs you need, or New Democrats who are going to fight for you.
At the same time, you guys have been propping up the government, propping up the minority government. Are you going to continue to do that, or was it the right thing to do?
Well, I would say that's not what we've been doing. What we've been doing is forcing Justin Trudeau to deliver things for Canadians. We've been forcing and fighting with the government to deliver things like dental care. They were never going to do that. So what we've done is used our power to force them to do something for people at a time when they're ignoring the needs of people. And if you look at what the Conservatives have done in this minority government, what have they done? Nothing. They've used their power to fight to oppose things like dental care. They want to take it away from people. So what we've done is what Parliament, the way it should work. If you have an ability to use leverage, you should use it for people. Use it to give people something that's going to help them out. For Sue, who I met in Ottawa, who was able to get her teeth looked after surviving cancer as a pensioner on a fixed income, it's going to give her back dignity to get her smile back. And that's what she wants. She wants her smile back. She lost her teeth after her cancer treatment. She's going to get her smile back because we fought for her and we forced Justin Trudeau to bring in dental care. And Pierre Poilievre wants to take that away from Sue. He wants to take away her dignity. We're going to fight back against that.
Is it coming up to the point where you withdraw your support from the government?
Well, we always have that ability. That's always a part of our thought process. We have the right to withdraw our support if we believe that the government's breaking their side of it if they're not delivering on things. And we always have that ability. We'll constantly reflect on that and make the decision that's in the best interest of Canadians.
Okay. When do you see an election happening?
Well, it's scheduled for 2025. So certainly in 2025. When it happens, anybody's guess. We're going to keep on fighting to make sure we get the most possible for people. And then when an election comes, I'm running to become the next prime minister of this country.
Okay. What are you expecting as a result of the next election?
I want to see a new Democrat government, a government that's working for people, a party that we are proudly founded by workers. So we're always going to put workers first. And we believe that's the right way to go. We need a government that's on the side of people, not the conservatives who want to help out their corporate buddies, not the liberals who have let you down, not Justin Trudeau or Pierre Poilievre, but Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats fighting for you.
Okay. So one of the things is we're in a period right now of high prices, of increasing violence in the streets. This is sort of, in some ways, it's one of the worst periods we've ever been through. And the Liberals, with you guys behind them, are the ones who got us here. Are these the people to get us out of this?
Well, the Liberals certainly are not going to get us out of this. We've seen them. We've seen their track record. After 9 years, it's more expensive to buy a home. Grocery prices are more expensive. We also know that Pierre Poilievre would make things even worse. We talked about housing, and the only way to build affordable housing is if governments actually step up and make ironclad, strings-attached investments to ensure that homes are affordable. Pierre Poilievre doesn't want to do any of that. He wants to cut all investments, cut all help to people. It's going to make things even worse for working people. So that's not going to help. And if we know that we're being ripped off by corporations and we need better protections so that we're not being ripped off, Pierre Poilievre has been very clear about that as well. He wants no rules, no regulations. He wants the big corporations to be free to do whatever they want, to rip you off as much as possible. But we know the monthly bills that people have to pay, our groceries, our cell phone and internet fees, our housing, these are largely driven by corporate greed. Cell phone companies are making record profits while we're paying the highest cell phone fees in the world. Corporate grocery stores are making record profits while we can't afford our groceries. It's clear that corporate greed is a problem. Pierre Poilievre wants to put fuel on the fire of corporate greed. Let them go and rip off people as much as they want. We're saying, no, let's stop them. Let's put in protections for people. So in the next election, I think that choice is really clear. We're on the side of people. The Liberals have failed you. Justin Trudeau has failed you. Pierre Poilievre is going to make things even worse. We're the only real option for working class people.
Okay. Just one more thing I wanted to ask you. What are you going to be talking to the mayor about today?
We want to hear the concerns of Hamilton. What are the major priorities? And one of the things on the agenda is absolutely going to be housing.
Okay. Anything specific you can say about housing in Hamilton?
Just that we want to make sure that housing is affordable in Hamilton. We want to make sure that people can have a home, that we've got a homelessness crisis as well. We want to make sure people are housed. And I want to know whatever we can do to help out the people of Hamilton be able to afford a home.
Right. When you go to places like Hamilton and see all these people living in tents, what do you think?
In a country as rich as ours, that shouldn't be happening. Like, there's no excuse for it. Like, we are a rich nation, a G7 nation. We should be able to house people. We should be able to have homes that people can afford. And where we are right now is not by happenstance or by chance. If you look at housing under Harper, when they were in power for 9 years, housing costs doubled, mortgages, rents, all doubled while they were in power, and they doubled again while Trudeau was in power. It is the same trajectory. Housing costs continue to rise under both Liberals and Conservatives because they're not taking this problem seriously. They think the market is fine. Pierre Poilievre thinks the market just is going to solve everything. But we know the current trends under his government, when Pierre Poilievre was in power, under the Harper regime, and when Justin Trudeau, under both of them, housing has continued to climb at the same rate. We've lost massively in affordable homes because both those governments let our affordable homes get sold off to big corporate landlords, and we lost affordable homes. They continually are making choices that benefit rich investors who are having a great time, making lots of money. Developers are doing great. But both of those governments, both of those parties, when they were in power, and while they're in power right now, have chosen to keep the rules that benefit the rich investors, and that's not working for us.